Hey there, fun food fans. It's Karen Ricks, head chef of our kitchen classroom, and I am super excited. I was going to say psyched. That's how excited I am. I am stoked to be bringing you our kickoff of 12 days of cookies as we count down the days till Christmas. And we're going to be beginning this series from our brand new Albanian kitchen classroom. Isn't this exciting? So over the course of the next 12 days, I want to be sharing little tidbits and stories from our global culinary adventures, as well as some fun techniques that we like to use here in our kitchen classroom to help you incorporate every single family member, all of your friends and loved ones, into the cooking adventure and make your food taste more delicious, of course. So we're going to be kicking off our 12 days of cookies with a super simple recipe of shortbread. So let's come on down to the bench and take a look at our simple list of ingredients. Alrighty, so what we have here is some melted butter. I'm going to start off, we've just got a half a cup of that, and I'm going to be doing two different variations on this recipe. So we've got two different bowls here. To our melted butter, we are going to be adding some sugar. I've got regular white sugar here. I've got a half a cup of butter and a quarter cup of sugar. I'm going to add white sugar to this one, and I've got dark brown sugar here. Now the dark brown sugar, isn't this beautifully moist? It has an amazing smell of molasses, because that's what brown sugar is. It's the white sugar, but before all the molasses and all those other dark things have been stripped out of it. So that's going to give a completely different kind of character to our cookies. All right, on top of that, I'm going to be adding a little bit of vanilla. My vanilla here is powdered, so that's what I'm adding. About a teaspoon of that. A pinch of salt. We want to make sure we are bringing out the flavors that we're incorporating here, because this is unsalted butter that we're using. And let's just mix that up. Okay, now I am a huge fan, as you know, of getting into all of our ingredients with our favorite kitchen tools right here at the end of our arms. And we will do that shortly. But I'm going to start just by bringing these together. Okay. And, as you can see, the brown sugar here is just slowly kind of melting almost. It's because it has a more solid character. Its extra moisture content helps it to hold together. So I'm just using my spatula here to break up some lumps in there. Okay. Now, shortbread cookies are so short because unlike a lot of other baked goods, they don't have any special leaveners in them to help them rise. So all we're doing, adding to our liquid ingredients here, is adding our flour. So that's what we're going to do. And to this, we're going to add about a cup of flour. Now I've got a big jar here. Ooh, and this is just plain white flour. But what I want to do is demonstrate a technique for measuring flour. Okay, I'm American, so we use cups. I know lots of people really focus on how exacting a science baking is and insist that you have to weigh your ingredients. And you can totally do that if that's what you want to do. I can tell you with decades of experience cooking that slight variations are going to give you slight variations. But it's so much more fun for me to be able to incorporate a lot of extra helping hands when you're not super stressed about measuring everything to the exact gram. So what I'm going to do is start by measuring my flour using the spooning method, where I use a spoon to scoop up the flour here, because that's going to give us a nice light addition without packing down the flour into our measuring cup. Okay, and so as I put in that last spoonful, I'm going to just use the handle and scrape off the top here so it's nice and even. That's an even cup. Okay, now why am I doing it this way with this particular recipe? Well, because shortbread is really forgiving. And as I talked about with the added moisture that the brown sugar adds, we're gonna use a different way of measuring. That's actually just taking the cup and sticking it in here. And I'm gonna shake off the excess so that it's level, and there's about a cup. Now, this is actually a little bit more about a cup than this about a cup because of the measuring method. But again, this recipe is so forgiving that it is not going to create an issue. I can add extra flour if I need to. I'm just gonna set this aside here. And if I've maybe added too much flour, I have a couple of tablespoons of melted butter over on the stove that we can add in to adjust, all right? So what I'm gonna do now is just use my spatula to start to incorporate that flour into our liquid ingredients. And I wish you could be in this kitchen to smell the wonderful molassesy flavor. This is what Christmas kind of smells like to me. Gingerbread, of course, is one of those traditions that I have grown to love, and it definitely feels like Christmas when you have that molassesy kind of smell. All right, I've incorporated all the flour, and actually this looks like I'm gonna need a little bit more. The dough here has come together, but you can see it's really kind of wet and sticky, and what I'm looking for is something a little bit more crumbly that's just gonna hold together. So all I'm gonna do is get into my flour here and add another spoonful. And we can add a little bit at a time until we get that texture that we're looking for. This is great. And I love shortbread too because of the way in which it encourages you to use all of your senses, looking and smelling. And remember what I talked about earlier, getting in with your hands and feeling the dough. And see, I can see that this is holding together very firmly, but it's not quite crumbling apart as I would like a shortbread to do. So I'm going to add one more spoonful of flour here to the mix, and I think that is just about going to put this dough where we want it to be. Just going to incorporate that with the spatula a little bit here. And I think it's time to get in here with my favorite kitchen tools, my fingers. Oh, there we go. This is the kind of crumbly texture we're looking for. It holds together when you press it, but it also crumbles very easily, kind of like wet sand. Oh, that's exactly what you'd be looking for if you were, say, wanting to pack sand to make a sand castle. There we go. All right, now we're going to do the same thing with our other dough. Oh, haha. But before we get into this, I promised I would tell you a story. This little canister right here is matcha. And I've been carrying this beauty around since our last trip to Japan a couple of years ago. It's almost gone, but one of the very first cookie baking classes I ever taught in Japan so many years ago was a matcha shortbread. Now, matcha is a special Japanese green tea. It is made by grinding up the whole leaf. And when it's kept in a canister like this, it actually, you get these little balls of green tea powder. So I'm just using a sieve to push it through so that I can make sure all of that beautiful green tea dissolves together as we mix it into our flour here in the dough. So there we go. This is another beautiful thing about shortbread cookies. That wonderful buttery simplicity is great for taking on extra flavors. So now that we've got the matcha in there, we're gonna bring all this together in our shortbread dough. Oh, this smells so amazing. Matcha has a wonderfully kind of grassy aroma. And its bitter taste is something that I would actually say is acquired. I will never forget the very first time I stopped at a Japanese vending machine. I hadn't been in the country more than a week, and I was out and just wanted to grab a drink, And so I went to this vending machine looking for a bottle of tea. And it was so simple. Put in the coins, push a button, you watch it tumble down. And I opened up this bottle and I took a big swig and I almost spit it all out. It was so bitter because there was no sugar in it at all. And having come from the American South, where sweet tea is de rigueur, it was a shock to my system to have gotten some tea that was completely and totally unsweetened. I can tell you now, after living in Japan for 10 years, there are certain teas that I prefer to be unsweetened now. And matcha is used throughout so many Japanese desserts, both with sugar and sometimes just dusted on as a powder without, a lot like cocoa powder. But for these particular cookies, the combination of matcha and the simple white sugar that we've blended together is going to be so amazing. And now we've got the consistency that we're looking for here. Look at that. This dough also has this beautiful, vibrant green now from our matcha. Oh, and it smells so wonderful. Now that we've mixed it together, it's time to press out our dough. So I'm going to put this right here into the bottom of a ceramic pie pan. The green color is going to stand out nicely against the white of this pie tin. And all I'm going to do is use my fingers to press this down into the bottom of the pan. Now, if you want to make it extra smooth when you're doing this, you can use something flat, smooth and flat bottomed, like this little ramekin that I have here, or a measuring cup. But I'm just going to do this with my fingers. I don't care if this is super precise. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to press it out into a nice, even layer along the bottom so that it can bake up beautifully. And once I've got it all pressed out, the last thing I need to do is to dock it. And this is important. We do this a lot with pie crusts and with other flat pastries that we're not expecting to rise because we don't want it to rise. I just need to grab a fork here. There we go. What I'm going to do is just poke a series of holes that's going to allow the steam from the liquid, the melted butter, to escape while it bakes so that our cookie doesn't get all puffed up while it's baking. This is a nice little series of holes in there. And if you're familiar with shortbread cookies in the stores, you'll often see that each individual cookie has that little pattern of holes in it. That's what it is, to allow the steam to escape so that our cookie can bake up nice and evenly. And there it is. Isn't that beautiful? Alrighty. I'm going to do the same thing with our other cookie dough, and then I'm going to pop those into the oven. It's only going to take about 15 to 20 minutes at about 350, that's 180 Celsius. And then we're going to pull them out of the oven and allow them to cool before cutting them up. I will come back and share some pictures with you folks here in our Play With Your Food community as we continue to count down the days until Christmas. Oh, this is so exciting. We're going to have so many cookies to share. Have you used matcha before? Are you a huge fan of shortbread cookies? What other variations are you going to make in your kitchen classroom? Come on over to our Play With Your Food community where we can share on the discussion of all of the delicious variations that you are making wherever in the world you are in your kitchen classroom. I can't wait to see all the deliciousness that you're baking up. And I will continue to share what we're doing here as we count down our 12 days of cookies. I'll see you again next time.